Hey guys, Theron Asbury here with Revital Outdoors, bringing you another exciting podcast this evening. Tonight we have Mr. Eric Moser. Last year, Eric got a top 5 finish on Lake Norman. That's another BFL tournament coming up very quickly this year. So we're excited to talk to him about his 2021 tournament, how he fished the tournament, maybe some of the baits that he used throughout, and what he predicts for this year. So very excited for that. Again, we're Revital Outdoors. We are a primary sponsor to the Major League Fishing BFL circuit. So very honored to be there. But if you've never heard of Revital Outdoors, please check us out on our website. We're a premium CBD company. We have great products for all the outdoor enthusiasts. We're THC free, made right here in America, and we're also accepting Pro Staff Daily. So if you're interested in anything like that, check out our website and apply for our Pro Staff position as well. And then also find us on Facebook and Instagram. And if you haven't already, be sure you subscribe to this channel. That way you get notified when all of our content on our YouTube channel is dropping. And we have a lot of great content coming in the future. So that being said, let's go ahead and get right into this podcast. Very excited to have Mr. Eric Moser with us this evening. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing great. So, talk to us a little bit. I looked up your history on Lake Norman. Seems like you know Lake Norman and the lakes in the area pretty well. So talk to us a little bit about your style of fishing and what you like about those East Coast lakes.
Well, typically I fish the Yak and Chain, High Rock, Baden, Tillery, Tuckertown. Don't get to fish as much as I used to. I started fishing Norman, probably went over there in the 90s, and we called them wind socks. They had a big head and they tapered down to nothing. So it wasn't a whole lot of fun. So it didn't go back over there until probably about 10 years ago, and the spots took over. And that's mostly what I catch. I'm happy when I catch a largemouth, but mostly spot fishing. And it's turned into a really fun lake. I take my two sons over there all the time fishing because you can catch fish. And so it's a great lake. I'm glad it's close and it's full of fish.
Absolutely. So, growing up fishing as well, doing the college thing, fishing the tour, I really came very savvy fishing those deep spotted bass clear lakes. And I haven't been to Norman yet. It still eludes me. It's still on the bucket list, but it just seems like a really fun lake, especially in the springtime, like right now.
February and March is my favorite time. It's they bite, and if you're fish for 15, 20 minutes and you're not getting bit, you better move, because the spotted bass, they're so aggressive. If you've caught them before, So if you don't get bit, you better move. So you move quite a bit around on Norman, and it's a big lake.
Okay. So talk to us about your tournament last year. Again, top 5 finish, 2021 tournament. Were you catching predominantly spotted bass? Is that all you weighed in, or did you have some largemouth? And then we'll kind of talk to us about the keys that you put together.
Yeah, in that tournament, I'm pretty sure I had all spots in that one. Typically, I will throw a jig, a crankbait, and a jerk bait that time of year. I did that for about 4 hours that morning. I only had one small spot. So I told my co-angler, said, we've got to go out deep. So I fished. I caught them on what's called a Damiki head, and I caught them from about 32 to 44 foot deep. And they were biting the best on this place that I have. It's a little ridge, and they were biting on it the best they had. We'd caught them there the week before, and they all weighed about 1.25 pounds. And then the ones I caught that day were 2 to 2.5 pounds. And I had live scope. I'd had it for about 3 weeks and wasn't no way an expert with it. But I'd figured out a little thing with it as far as watching it and the distance to throw my bait. And I could see my bait go down. It's like a tracer trail that little Damiki leaves. And so I figured out how they were relating on the bottom. I got real lucky. I saw something that looked like a speck of rice, and I threw my Damiki over there, and I just threw it perfect. And I watched it go right down. It hit that speck of rice. And when I went to pull up, he was on there. And so you just pull up on them like crappie fishing. And so then I knew what to look for. And then I just started scanning around with that. I think I caught 7. My co-angler, he didn't have any. I gave him a Damiki head. He ended up catching 2 or 3. And so, but they were all spots. And so I hate to do that to my co-angler. I told him we would fish deep, typically on a drop shot. But that Damiki, they were just swallowing it. So it was a lot of fun. So I only fished out for probably about 2.5, 3 hours. I went back shallow for the last hour and threw a jig, just trying to catch a big largemouth, and didn't have any luck.
Okay. So I assume you were fishing brush piles then when you were catching them on that Damiki rig.
On this ridge, no, it's the bait had got on this place, and Norman does not have a lot of bait, or I'm not good at finding it. And so there was bait on this ridge, and we'd caught some there in the CBC the week before, and the bait was still there. There's one brush pile, the biggest one I caught, I saw on live scope. I threw to it, and I'm watching my bait go down to the brush, and I engaged the bail, and I just let it down like I'm crappie fishing, and I watch it, and I see a red streak come out of the brush pile, and he hits it, and he was almost a 3-pound spot. He was the biggest one I had. That was pretty exciting. So that was a lot of fun. But that's only one brush on that one place. I do fish it around brush. Most time I'm throwing a drop shot because I fish it weedless.
Okay. Now, is that pretty much where you caught all your fish in the Norman event last year? Were you able to move around, or it's just kind of like you found that one spot, they were there, and that's where you did your damage?
That one spot was it. I had one when I got there, and I called it out. It was a little one I caught on a jerk bait early that morning. And none of my places, I usually catch them on a crankbait and a jerk bait and a jig that time of year, and I could not get a bite. And I couldn't figure out what they were doing because I couldn't get them to chase nothing. They didn't appear to be looking down because I was throwing a jig on places I'd caught them quite a bit. Everything was right for what I'd fished for the last few years, and I could not get them to touch it. So I went out deep, just hoping to get a limit, and there were good ones there. So it worked out for me. And my co-angler, I saw him last week 2 weeks ago at another tournament, and he was laughing with me about it because he learned something that day. He had never fished it. And my buddy Travis here locally, he learned it in Tennessee, and he taught it to me about 7-8 years ago. And when it's really cold and things change, when they get in a little funk, they really like that Damiki head. So it worked good.
Okay, well, talk to us a little bit about how your setup is for Damiki head. I mean, I know that kind of came on scene a few years ago. It was on a Bassmaster Elite event on Cherokee Lake in Tennessee, I believe. And guys, it seemed like the whole entire field that was in the top 10, including Jacob Wheeler, that one event, they were throwing that Damiki head. So talk to us a little bit more about how you like to rig it and maybe the setup that you like to rig it on.
I use 10-pound braid to 8-pound Tatsu fluorocarbon, and then I tie that FG knot, and I typically tie about a 20-foot leader because I don't want anything down there getting down to them. Most time I'm fishing it between 30 to 45 foot deep. And I don't want that bright line down there, but I want it in the water because I'm old and I can't see good anymore. So I want to be able to see that line if it moves. And you got to watch your line. And then the big thing is you don't set the hook, you just pull because it's a razor sharp, little bitty number one hook. So you just pull up on them, and typically they're caught right in the top of the mouth, perfect every time. I don't want to say this. I don't hardly ever lose a fish on it. I mean, they eat it, and when they get it really good. So it's fun. It's fun fishing. My co-angler last year had a ball with it because I was about calling shots after the first 2 or 3. I figured out what they were doing, and he had a really good time with it. But it's 7-foot spinning reel, always on a spinning reel. Live scope made the difference. Without live scope, I wouldn't have caught them. I wouldn't have seen how they were positioned on the bottom, and I would have just been throwing around and might have caught 1 or 2, but I'd have never caught them the way I caught them.
Okay. So it sounds like it's a lot similar to a technique of throwing like a little crappie, like a hair jig or a marabou jig or something like that. But instead, we're throwing a little piece of plastic on it.
Yeah, use that little Damiki. I use it's a Erie head style that Travis got me. I like it the best because when you throw it, it spirals and it leaves a good tracer trail on the live scope. You can see it. I've thrown the Moon Eye, and there's another one I've thrown, but they go down more of a sway and back and forth, which may be good at times. But I like the Erie head because it swirls down and you can see it really good on your live scope. And when you're watching them, it made a difference for me that day. And so that's just what I'm used to. So if it's working, don't change. So I use it, but it's fun. I love it. I'm telling you, live scope is made a difference.
Absolutely. So, well, let's talk about in terms of an angler that's coming to Lake Norman for the first time. Maybe they're fishing the BFL. Maybe they're a first-time angler with the BFL circuit. How would you recommend them to attack Lake Norman? Like, what's the breakdown? What's just a common couple of baits they can have with them?
Well, you got to have a speed trap, ideally in crystal crawl, because that's what most people are going to throw. Speed trap is great in North Carolina. We probably made it famous. As many people around here that throw a speed trap. I'd throw the big one and the small one to see which one I like the best. A jerk bait. I prefer a shallow running jerk bait. I'll still throw it over deep water, but I throw one that'll dive 4 or 5 foot, and that's it. I don't throw the real deep diving jerk baits. I don't tend to do as good with them. I'm not an Alabama rig fan, so I don't like throwing it. They'll eat it, but I just don't like throwing it.
Right.
And a jig. So if you got a speed trap, a jerk bait, and a jig, you'll catch them on Norman. And like I said, if you pull up on a place and you fish there for 15 minutes, you ain't caught nothing, you need to move, because if a spot's around, he's going to bite most of the time. And it's
Right.
like I said, it's fun fishing.
And it sounds like this time of year they're very actively, aggressively chasing the bait. They're not necessarily thinking about that spawn yet, that pre-spawn staging pattern. They're just focused in on eating.
Well, they'll be eating down in Ramsey. They've got the hot hole. They'll be on the bed. It's a full moon now. There's probably some on the bed now. They'll go on the bed down in there. I've seen them on the bed down there in late February. So they might be some on the bed down there now for sure. Yep.
Okay.
That'll be the only place, but they'll be heading that way. If the water, I haven't been on the lake in 2 weeks. I'll go Sunday and practice and see what the water temp is. When I was there 2 weeks ago, it was 45 to 48 on my gauge, and we had a pretty tough day. They didn't bite good for us, and we fished deep and fished shallow. We struggled, but if it's as warm as it's been, it'll probably take 15 to 18 pounds to win. It's hard to tell. If you can get that one big largemouth bite, it can make a difference. You catch a 3 to 4 pound largemouth. If you catch a 5, you're golden. And the lake's full of big spots. I mean, I've caught a bunch of 4s. I've not caught anything over 5, but I've caught a bunch of 4 pound spots. And when you catch one, you can tell a difference, and it's a lot of fun.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then let's switch gears before we wrap up. Let's think about the co-angler. If the co-angler was going, he was taking a couple of rods to be successful that he could maximize his bite percentage with, what would you recommend?
Yep. Shaky head, and I'll throw a shaky head too. I'll throw it all the time. They love a shaky head this time of year. Shaky head, a jig, a speed trap, and a drop shot if I was a co-angler.
Okay.
Yep.
Perfect. So a little bit more finesse presentation, but still something that can catch them on Lake Norman.
Oh yeah. Now they love a shaky head. You need to get out here and fish. You need to get out here in the next month. You need to be here now between March. They'll really bite. And then when they come off the bed, topwater's fun. That's when I take my boys. We'll go in April and May and throw topwater first thing in the morning, and throw a whopper plopper and a buzz bait, and a pop-ar, and they'll eat it. It's a lot of fun.
Fantastic. So, well, Eric, you've given us a great podcast. We appreciate you coming on and talk to us about your top 5 finish last year on Lake Norman. Good luck to you this year. Before we let you go, we want to give you the time to thank any of your family, any of your friends, anybody that supports you in your fishing career. Now's the time we can do that.
Hey, well, I appreciate it. Thank you. Yes, I would, of course, thank my wife, because she lets me go and supports me with everything I do, and my 2 boys. And I appreciate it. Thank you. I'm going to check out your products too.
Absolutely. So, well, Eric, thank you for coming on with Revital Outdoors. We hope to have you on again soon, because that means you're having a good 2022 season.
I hope so.
We just wish you the best of luck this year.
All right. Thanks a lot. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. From all of us at Revital Outdoors, I'm Theron Asbury. Again, you've been talking to Mr. Eric Moser. Again, he got a top 5 finish last year in the BFL event on Lake Norman. Thank you again for being on with us. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't already. We've got a lot of great new podcasts coming out very soon. And then, of course, be safe out there. God bless. And we'll talk to everyone very, very soon.